we're real disappointed right now with how the season ended, and I'm still dealing with that. Is how many good players we had to let go out of this building that went and helped a lot of other teams.
People want what we've kind of created.
That our players grinded and overcame a ton of things this year, and I am proud to a degree of what we accomplished. We're going to always try to do as well as we can to compete each year. There was very few Sundays that we felt by the time we got there that we didn't have a chance to win. I never sit there and say like, oh, this will be successful if we just get close to the playoffs or something like that. I mean, we always expect to try to compete for the playoffs. We know some seasons are going to be harder than others, which we thought this would be.
Now that the 49ers season is officially finished, I've had some time to reflect. In the 2025 San Francisco 49ers, a statistical glitch, finishing 12-5 in the regular season, a wild card win over the Philadelphia Eagles, but then getting bounced in the divisional round 41-6. So really, it's bittersweet success. They were able to overcome an insane amount of injuries, but questions still linger. Why not a deeper run? What killed their Super Bowl shot? Well, today, that's what I'm breaking down. The big wrongs plus the fixes heading into 2026. So let's dive into this strange year and blueprint the rebound. Back at it talking 49ers football. Let's get into it, y'all. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Ryan Tigey, back in action. So as I mentioned from the jump, I consider this past season with the San Francisco 49ers as a success. The team ended up finishing 12-5, the number 6 seed heading into the playoffs, an upset victory in wild card weekend playoff matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles, where the team won 23-19, which was massively impressive given all the chaos the team went through. But the wrongs, they piled up. They had an historic injury toll. And a lot, I see it all over the internet, is being made around the conspiracy of the substation that's located directly next to the 49ers facility. And regardless if that played a role or not, the defense had lapses, finishing 25th in pass defense, offensive inconsistencies, costly mistakes and losses. So what's the path forward? The path forward is they got to rebuild that continuity. They have to attack their weaknesses, especially with Saleh's exit, creating the 5th time in 5 years the 49ers are going to be going into the season with a new defensive coordinator. So today I'm going to break down 4 what went wrong this season and 4 fixes for 2026, with the goal being to turn this anomaly season into a dynasty reload. Because don't forget, people said this was a rebuilding year for the 49ers.
Are the Niners a rebuild or contenders this season?
I personally think they're in a rebuild, and I think they're in a rebuild because of the state of affairs in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Very few people gave the 49ers a shot to be competing in the NFC West, let alone get a playoff spot. So let's dive into it. What went wrong? Number 1, the injury bug. That wasn't a bug. It was a plague that drastically affected both sides of the ball, with the 49ers players making the most amount of money on the sidelines for the vast majority of the season. So think about it. Let's just do a quick injury recap. Nick Bosa, season-ending ACL tear in week 3 against the Arizona Cardinals. Wide receiver 1, Brandon Ayuk, did not play a single snap from his injury in the 2024 season. We don't need to recap everything that went on with that guy, but he was MIA, and they need to get that guy out of the building as quickly as humanly possible. They're done with him. Brock Purdy, QB1, missed 8 games battling a turf toe injury. Kittle, the starting tight end, got injured week 1 in Seattle, missed 5 games, came back, and then got injured again. All-pro linebacker Fred Warner, he got injured in week 6 in Tampa Bay, out for the rest of the season. Their number 1 draft pick from this last year's draft, Mikael Williams, he tore his ACL in week 9, missed the remainder of the season. Then there's pseudo wide receiver 1, Ricky Pearsall. He only played in 9 games, only getting a total of 36 receptions with his ongoing knee injury that kept him in and out of games, building no consistency with Brock Purdy when Brock Purdy was actually playing. But nonetheless, Ricky Pearsall, he missed the vast majority of the season and is one guy to keep your eye out on, considering he is part of the young nucleus that the 49ers need to bring them up to producing on a consistent level. He's somebody so far through his second season hasn't been somebody reliable. He was inconsistent all year long due to injuries. So there was a total of 128 IR stints by the San Francisco 49ers team. And of course, yet again, it was the worst in the NFL. The 49ers got injuries, sustained injuries all year long, and they could not get out of it. And so what does that mean? That means other people have to pick up the slack. They have to fill in for the starters who are unable to play. And that particularly impacted the defense. The defense regressed. The more players went down, naturally, the more the defense regressed. They ended up finishing 25th in pass defense, 11th in run defense, forcing a lot of young guys into the fire. And we saw it. We saw the rookie mistakes. And so what we need to see from those rookies who got forced into playing a lot of snaps, a lot of them being too early to be ready to be playing, but they had no choice. They got to take that and grow from that experience. Ultimately, that will be a value add for the 49ers moving forward with their young players that got a lot of playing time this year. But as it relates to the 2025 season, it showed by rookies playing when they weren't ready to play. And so when they're battling injuries, the roster turnover, it just hurt their depth. Hell, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles in the wildcard playoff round, they were with their 5th, 6th linebackers as their starting linebacking core in the wildcard playoff game. It was nuts. And so the bottom line is health derailed this season. And through all of that, they still finished 12-5. An amazing feat despite all that chaos, but it got exposed in the playoffs and ultimately caught up to them. Wrong number 2, the defensive inconsistencies under Saleh. Saleh's return was a massive improvement from years prior, especially what we saw in the 2024 season. The defense finished in top 13 in points allowed per game with 21.8, but the defensive line could not get pressure, let alone sacks. They just couldn't do it, ranking dead last in sacks on a per game basis. And so why does that happen? Again, there's no other answer except reverting back to the injuries that plague, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And the 49ers youth movement, it just led to glitches, like missed tackles and allowing explosive plays. It also didn't help that they ranked 23rd in defensive turnovers with only 16 total for the season. They truly defined the bend but don't break defense. They would give up yards, big chunk plays, and ultimately they would hope to bow up in the red zone and keep the team to 3 points versus scoring a touchdown. And Robert Saleh, he tried. His hybrid fronts worked early, but it just wore down late. And I didn't check the stats on this, and it could be a little bit of recency bias, but they were atrocious or became atrocious on third downs. Every time they were in a third down spot, an opportunity to get off the field, get the ball back for the offense, they gave it up. And even worse, they seemed to do it a lot on third and longs. Anything 3rd and 8 plus, it was like a guaranteed first down at the end of the season. It was atrocious, but what could they do? Wrong number 3, offensive stumbles and wide receiver woes. What we saw from Shanahan offense, they weren't bad, but they weren't great. They ended up ranking in the top 10 in total yards per game, but dipped to 12th in points scored per game. And we all know in the game of football, if you take away all the stats, the only thing that matters is points that you score. That is it. And the 49ers finished 12th in doing so, ranked amongst all other offenses. And it definitely does not help that they were -6 in turnover differential. That's not great. And so when you look at the offense, you can't do it without looking at the wide receiver group, because that is clearly where the 49ers lacked the most amount of skilled players. It was in the wide receiving core. Brandon Ayuk, as I mentioned, nowhere to be found. Ricky Pearsall, inconsistent, always injured. had trouble consistently staying on the field, had possibly 2 games, I believe, that had over 100 yards receiving, but he was too inconsistent to stack up multiple good games this past season. And so then Juwan Jennings, who became the de facto number 1 wide receiver just due to depth, he had a very solid year. But we all know he isn't a true number 1 receiver. I love Juwan Jennings. I love his attitude. I love his physicality, but he is not a number 1 receiver. He's a number 2 or number 3 receiver who can absolutely make big time catches, but isn't a guy you can consistently target. And then there's Purdy, the quarterback. Purdy, he became hot post injury. We all know he missed a big chunk of the games early on dealing with turf toe, and he came back hot. But again, with the inconsistency around him on the skilled position players, he wasn't able to get into rhythm. We saw Purdy trying to do more than what he's normally had to do in years past, and it didn't always work out. And then when you talk about the run game, we have an MVP level running back in Christian McCaffrey, a guy who had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Unbelievable season from Christian McCaffrey. The guy, he literally does it all. But when you just focus specifically on the run game, the O-line just led to too many inconsistencies. Finishing at the lowest end, I think, in the Kyle Shanahan tenure era, ranking 24th in rush yards. Opposing defenses, they were selling out to stop the run, and unfortunately, they were able to do that. The offense, it was simply just missing speed. They could not take the top off defenses, forcing them to readjust. I mean, hell, we just saw it in the Rams versus Seattle game, in the NFC Championship game. When was the last time you remember the 49ers offense driving 4 plays for 75 yards in a touchdown? I witnessed the Rams do it, and it made me think, when was the last time the 49ers have done that? I can't recall the last time that they have just been able to be explosive and score quickly. It just wasn't in the cards for them this year in particular. What went wrong? Number 4, game management and mental lapses. Shanahan's clock management and 4th down calls, those definitely improved, but lapses persisted. And you just got to think about the mental toll it took on this team. Adversity, it builds resilience. But this strange season led to stupefying moments, key penalties in key points of the game, and execution drops. So overall, this season, it was bittersweet. They had success despite all the odds stacked against them, but ended the season with no hardware and a lot of key positions that they need to address this offseason. And plus, it's ultra shitty when your NFC West rival is competing for a Super Bowl on your home turf at Levi Stadium with a second-year head coach in Mike McDonald. So if this substation conspiracy is true, I would tell the city of Santa Clara, let's crank that up while Seattle's in town. So let's talk fixes. Fixes number 1 and 2. Health, depth, overhaul, and a new DC search. Fix number 1, prioritize health. Figure out if that substation thing is true. Because if it is, you got to make adjustments. The 49ers, time and time again, go into the season being one of the most injured teams in the NFL. And it wasn't just 1 year, 2 years. It's been damn near every year Kyle Shanahan's been with the 49ers that they're one of the most injured, if not the most injured teams in the NFL. It's a problem. So Jed York needs to invest in health and science. We got to take care of the boys. And they got to draft for depth. They need more depth. They need more depth. Fix number 2, the new defensive coordinator, the search for the defensive coordinator. They need to maintain continuity, hiring a bona fide defensive coordinator in the NFL. This isn't the year to bring on a new first-time DC to the 49ers. It's just not. They need to go out and bring in a guy like Jim Schwartz. Shanahan loves him. His defenses are unbelievable. A guy like Jim Schwartz. A guy like Raheem Morris, the former Falcons head coach, who Kyle Shanahan has a great relationship with. Because right now, everyone's talking about Gus Bradley. The players love Gus Bradley. He was on the staff this past year. Everyone talks about how good he is inside the building. But we've seen his track record as a former defensive coordinator, and it has been great. So I believe the 49ers, they need to go get a bona fide defensive coordinator, somebody who's solidified in the league and has shown success prior in that role, which I think Kyle Shanahan knows and he will do. Fix number 3, go in all on one side of the ball. I don't care what side it is, offense or defense. We see in the Super Bowl coming up, both are defensive dominant teams, but the 49ers, instead of trying to sprinkle both offense and defense, I believe to get some things fixed, they need to invest in one side of the ball and just go all in. If it's on offense, they got to bolster that wide receiver room. Again, that was the Achilles heel in my eyes in this past season. You could say the offensive line as well too, but really it was more so the wide receivers in my opinion. So if they were to do that, re-sign Juwan Jennings, and then they have to go after a true wide receiver one, a speedster, maybe a guy like T. Higgins type of player. We hear the rumors about Justin Jefferson. That'd be sick. But regardless, they need a true wide receiver one in the building if they're going to go on the offensive side of the ball. They got to keep developing Pearsall. We'll see. Third year is the charm. We'll see if Ricky Pearsall can stay healthy, but he needs to continue to develop. And I think they should target a high-end tight end. Someone like Kyle Pitts would be a great addition to the 49ers tight end room because, again, we don't know when Kittle's going to come back. How is he going to look when he comes back? The 49ers, they need to target a tight end. And then in the draft, target guards, offensive guards. Not the sexiest pick, but the 49ers need it. The guards on both sides, right and left, both regress from what we saw in prior years. So I would go ahead and target guards in the draft. High picks, go to guards. And then if they decide to go defensive side of the ball, they desperately need another defensive end opposite of Nick Bosa. So they need to go out in free agency and sign a big-time defensive pass rusher. And they also need another big-time linebacker to play opposite of Fred Warner. D. Winters, the guy flies around, but he is still very inconsistent. It's not like this is his first year in the league. He's been in the league now, and the inconsistencies of where he should be at still seem too high to me, and I believe the 49ers would have a major upside getting a big-time linebacker in free agency. But if they can't find a linebacker, they have to get a safety. Boy, did I miss Hufanga when you see him in the AFC Championship game. You see the way that guy flies around, and the fact that the 49ers, unfortunately, had to let him go. The 49ers, they need to go back to the drawing board and get a safety. Their safeties were wildly inconsistent this year. Both sides, free safety and strong safety. So the 49ers absolutely need to go for another safety. And then in the draft, replenish like they did last year, the defensive line. Just target all defensive linemen if they're going to invest on the defensive side of the ball. And then fix number 4 is a mental culture reset. Shanahan and Lynch in their postgame, they emphasized execution and veteran leadership to eliminate lapses. So again, I revert back to point number 3, invest in one side of the ball. Go all in. And I truly believe it should be defense. Not just because what we're seeing in the Super Bowl, both stacked defensive teams, but I believe Kyle Shanahan has a much better way of controlling the offense and having the offense be successful than what we can do on defense, because the defense, they gave up way too much. Robert Saleh literally got every ounce of goodness out of the defense that you could possibly have. And with a new defensive coordinator coming in, we need to bolster that defense. So I think defense is the route to go. So as I wrap this up, 2025 was a strange year. There was a lot of successes, but there are so many things that need to be corrected and addressed as the 49ers head into the 2026 offseason. And I believe in 2026, if they were to go all in on one side of the ball, get new DC stability, the 49ers can come back to the 2026 seasons with a 13+ win season as we look ahead. Because one thing that seems to get overlooked is, yes, the 49ers, they finished the number 6 seed in the NFC, but the only good thing that you could say about the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams finishing above the 49ers in the NFC West is that the 49ers are going to play a third place schedule now, which again should benefit them going into 2026. Because as I mentioned from the beginning of this year, the 49ers, they were playing a fourth place schedule because they finished 4th in the NFC West last year. Well, this year, even though they had huge amounts of success, finished with 12 wins, it helped them playing a 4th place schedule. And now this upcoming season, 2026, they're going to be playing a 3rd place schedule. Again, massively benefits the 49ers as we look ahead. And I truly believe they can get back on track if they invest in one side of the ball and put all their chips on the table. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. What was their biggest weakness this year? If they had to address one side of the ball, which side of the ball would you pick, offense or defense? Let me know in the comments. I'll be back, but until my next video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. Hit me up. Peace.